All right, radio audience is going to rejoin in 2 minutes, but let's bring Tommy P on. He's not wearing a hat, I don't believe. Okay, not at all. Good to see you, Tom. Well, Tom,
Good to see you, Rich. What's up to my boys in studio?
Something going on with the lid here, Tom? I mean, are you growing? Are those burns? We got sideburns going on here? What do we got here? What's happening? We know we're fixated. As bald brotherhood individuals are fixated. What do you have here? What's going on? What do we have?
Your attention to detail is appreciated, Rich. Always impressive. I have my first haircut since before the NFL draft, right after this show.
Oh, wow.
So this is the final documentation of this version of the bro flow. Cannot necessarily say exactly what the outcome is going to be. Still in negotiations with my stylist on what we're going to do this afternoon.
Stylist.
But on the other side, I'll be a little more kempt.
Pardon me.
Excuse me.
Stylist.
Tom, I know about that. Okay. I got a stylist.
I need to see the
I know about that.
I need to see the party in the back.
You don't go to the barber. You don't go to the barber to have this hair.
Tom.
No, hold on a minute.
I get it.
What's the party in the back looking like? Give me the profile. Turn your head.
I mean, you can see the
Whoa, Elvis.
He's got
It's in the building.
Thank you very much.
We got a lot going on, yeah.
So
a lot up top, a lot on the side, just everywhere, Rich.
Don't rub it in. Don't rub it in. But so you have not cut your hair since Green Bay, since prior to the draft at all?
Correct. I got a haircut sometime probably right before I headed for the week in Green Bay. I thought I'm on like a once every 10 years switch up the haircut at this point, Rich, and I figured this was a logical summer just to grow it out, see what options we have.
Yep.
I may not be right back where I started come week one. We will start to get answers later today.
Well, to paraphrase a quote this time of year, I'm only talking about the hair that's here.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
Just not the hair that might come.
My hair's in its 15th year of a holdout, right?
Don't cut it. Slick it back like Wall Street.
Oh, yeah.
Put the plus in NFL Plus.
Slick it back.
Tom Pelissero, everybody here on the Rich Eisen Show, has just joined us. The Pelissero Bro Flow might be a great fantasy team name.
Not bad.
Okay.
Not bad.
All right,
I knew this morning
Yes.
when after my Good Morning Football hit, I started getting both texts from people in the NFL and various posts on social media asking me about the hair. It's time. So later today, we'll be taking care of what's going on.
And for the radio audience just rejoined us, Tom has not cut his hair since the draft and is seeing a stylist today. A stylist.
Oh, boy.
What the heck is going on here? All right, Tom. Tell me about Justin Fields. What happened? How hurt is he? What's the expectation that we know right now, Tom?
Well, first off, Rich, I would say whenever people see the phrase carted off, they have the idea that it's what you see on Sundays and somebody, crying into a towel and has to be taken off the field. For a lot of these teams, they cart a guy, meaning use a cart to get him into the locker room because the practice field is far enough away that you don't want to have to fireman carry the guy a couple of 100 yards. I mean, it sounds like Justin Fields rode shotgun into the facility here. I talked to people who were there. He got stepped on. I mean, that's exactly what happened. It is a toe injury. My understanding is they examined him, x-rays. There's no fracture. Ian Rappaport had reported to dislocation as the initial diagnosis. He's still undergoing an MRI and further tests here, but certainly relative to what the initial reaction was this morning, Rich, and the questions that it raised, this seems like, again, pending further tests, seems like very good news in a bad situation, or could have been a bad situation for Justin Fields and the Jets.
Well, obviously there is some sort of, for the lack of a better analogy, PTSD when it comes to Jets quarterbacks, and hopes that are put into their baskets and pages that are turned because they've arrived, and the same old Jets situation is going to finally be overcome. And so you could understand the level of concern that can be had from it. So there's nobody can tell you, nobody's been able to tell you ballpark weeks 4 to 6, 6 to 8, 2 to 4.
Well, that's precisely why they're doing the additional tests and the MRI, because once you rule out, a broken toe, which would be a longer type of a recovery here, now you're into that sort of gray area of, is it days? Is it weeks? It does not sound like it's going to be months. Again, pending the further tests here, it would seem, Rich, like this is something that Justin Fields is going to be back from pretty quickly here. Doesn't sound like, again, initially, the week one is in any doubt as he goes up against the guy who tore his Achilles on the fourth snap a couple of years years ago for the Jets here. So we'll see exactly how it plays out. You would expect them to proceed cautiously. But again, there's not a fracture. It's not some type of major injury. This wasn't an Achilles or anything like that. This is a toe injury, a dislocation, and they'll see, exactly how long it's going to take him to get back. But it does not sound like it's going to be a great deal of time.
So as of right now, I guess to weave everything together, no hair on fire to the people that you've spoken to in Florham Park, New Jersey right now. And nobody's hair is appearing to be on fire over this.
We're just going to keep doing this, huh?
Yes, we are. Notice I said weave as well. I did say weave. Did you notice that, Chris? I mentioned the word weave. But nobody seems to be overly freaked out about this.
No, nobody wants to see it. I mean, you've got coaches, a lot of whom, just got there from different staffs around the league. They've all seen those bad situations on the first day of training camp. For the people who are still around that building from the opener a couple of years ago, absolutely. Everybody's got that initial shock factor. And one of the things about the way that the NFL is covered now and on social media, and this is in no way, a critique of the reporters on hand. All you can report is what you saw, which is Justin Fields, the quarterback, just limped off and was taken on a cart into the locker room here until people actually get off the field and the doctors get to examine him. You're operating in a vacuum of information. So in that hour and a half, they were trading for Kirk Cousins, trading for Kenny Pickett, starting Tyrod Taylor. Now we're back to, in all likelihood, barring something major being revealed in terms of the additional tests and the MRI, Justin Fields still being their starter come week one.
Tom Pelissero here on the Rich Eisen Show. Okay, training camp injuries always take precedence over training camp holdouts. But now that we've handled the injury portion of it, let's talk about the hold-in Dallas. What is your reporting on the Joneses and the Parsonses and whether they've reached out to the agents, as Parsons, according to our friend Clarence Hill, asked the Joneses to do, and they still haven't really personally reached out to Micah's agent. How serious is this situation, Tom?
Well, the Cowboys are in a unique setup because normally you wouldn't want the owner to be calling the agent to get a deal done, but Jerry's also the GM. And so it's the logical person. If you're going to finalize a deal, you'd like him to call a very, high profile agent whose name Jerry claimed not to know several months ago. It just sounds like since they had that initial, what both sides have described as a handshake type of deal directly between Jerry and Micah several months ago, there just has not been a ton of progress. Why Jerry decides to go to the podium a few days ago and say, hey, he could get hit by a car. I honestly don't know. Every year there's about 10 to 12 bites from that press conference, whether he's talking about mosquitoes or using different analogies, whatever, that you walk away going, well, that was a strange thing to say in that moment, but that's part of the Cowboys experience. It's part of the Jerry experience. I would say this, Rich. We know exactly where these numbers should come in based upon Myles Garrett's at 40, TJ Watt's at 41. Mike has always been more likely to be above both of those, somewhere in that probably $43 to $45 million per year range. Now it's a matter of what does the structure look like on that deal. Cowboys historically have done strong upfront cash flow types of deals, but they also like longer deals where they buy up years on the back end whenever they get to talking. And I'm sure there are other members of the organization, the people who actually handle the nitty gritty of negotiations, have talked to David Mulugheta by this point. That's going to be one of the sticking points it has, which is, do you want to have a superstar player sign a 5 or 6 year deal and essentially sign away his prime? From the agent and the player's perspective, you'd rather do a shorter term deal, let's say 4 years, where you're getting another bite at the apple before you hit age 30. This should not be, in terms of just the raw numbers and what the deal should look like, it shouldn't be a tough deal to get done. We know, even though it took forever on Dak, it took a long time on CD, ultimately you got to the logical things, which were large portions guaranteed. They were shorter term deals. And that's because the players ultimately had the leverage. For Micah, the leverage for the team, if there is any, is, hey, ultimately you're going to have to choose. You're going to play out this year's deal. Then we can franchise tag you next year. We can go franchise tag you again. We can go 3 years out in this thing if we really want to, just like we did with Dak. The problem with that logic is, just like in all these other deals, by waiting, the Cowboys historically have ended up paying more. And while, again, I would maintain that the Micah number really hasn't changed because of recent events, including the TJ Watt deal, it's still a substantial amount. The cap's going to continue to grow, and the number is just going to go up.
And then we're always assuming, Tom, that whoever is holding out or in wants to reset the market. And that's potentially the reason why that player is not in camp right now. What's your knowledge about what Terry McLaurin and Trey Hendrickson are asking for? Are they trying to reset the market for those positions?
Neither one are trying to reset the market. They're both trying to get paid fairly relative to their production. And listen, both guys are right around age 30, which for a long time has been a scary number within the NFL. If you go back historically and you actually analyze the data, there are some positions where players can perform really well into their early or even mid-30s. There's other positions where you have kind of a precipitous drop-off. In both cases, it's kind of similar. For Terry McLaurin, he turns 30 years old in September, but he's coming off of 5 straight 1,000-yard seasons. If you look at his numbers are almost identical the past 5 years, other than last year he caught a whole boatload of touchdowns. And oh, by the way, this will be the first time, I believe, in his career that he's had the same week 1 starting quarterback 2 years in a row because of the constant turn in Washington. Before Jaden Daniels got there, I believe the quarterback who had started the most with Terry McLaurin was Taylor Heineke. So for McLaurin, you're watching all these other players get these big-time types of contracts. DK Metcalf as part of a trade with the Steelers, ending up getting a monster type of deal. Obviously, Jamar Chase reset the top of the market. Terry McLaurin's not trying to get $35, $38, $40 million per year. However, he's due a little under $20 million this year. And the reality is, he signed that deal several years ago. The $20 million a year player, even 3 years ago at the receiver position, is now a $30 million a year player. And for Terry McLaurin, look at these other deals, you're thinking I should be somewhere in the 30s just to bring it up to snuff. We know that he's in the Virginia area, in part because he was snapped in a photo outside a yoga class.
That's right.
So obviously he thinks there's a possibility that, hey, something can get done that would get him into the building. But my understanding has been all options are on the table at this point. He could ultimately end up requesting a trade. He could end up with the team working out a deal. He could even just show up and say, I'm going to play out the last year of my contract, or tack on some incentives. We've seen that at other times in recent years, and I'll just come in without a new long-term deal. There's a lot of different buttons that Terry McLaurin and his agent Buddy Baker could push. They've not yet pushed them. So while they're talking, as of this morning, Rich, it did not sound like there was any progress in terms of a long-term deal. So we'll continue to wait and see how that goes. With Trey Hendrickson, same thing. He's 30 years old. He has been the most productive pass rusher in terms of sacks over the last couple of years. He led the league in 2024. May not have the physical traits of some other guys, but you can't argue with the production. The issue in Cincinnati is not that he's trying to reset the market. He's not trying to get over $40 million per year or 41 to beat TJ Watt, even though TJ Watt's basically the same age. He's just trying to get paid in that same range, where you look at what Max Crosby got, which was upwards of 35. Danielle Hunter was in that same range earlier in the offseason. Obviously, Miles is at 40. It's going to be somewhere in that bandwidth. My understanding is when you had Bengals officials on Monday speaking very optimistically, Mike Brown, Duke Tobin, among others, talking about, we think we're going to get this done. There was real talk that potentially they could get something done, because in terms of the raw numbers, again, Rich, we know where this is going to land, right? The APY is what always gets the headlines, and it's the highest paid or whatever, but it's also about structure. The Bengals are one of only really 2 teams in the league at this point, along with Green Bay, that don't do future guarantees. They do the signing bonuses guaranteed and nothing else. Well, whether there was miscommunication or whatever, when ultimately Trey Hendrickson got another offer, it only once again had the first year guaranteed, not 2026, not 2027, only this year. Trey Hendrickson, from the time he showed up to a practice in May in a polo and khakis and said, I'm not playing on this year's deal, has made clear, what do you want? I want a multi-year commitment here. I want to be able to be committed to this team for the next couple of years here. The team has not been willing to do that, so Trey Hendrickson flew back to Florida on Monday night. We'll see when or if he ends up returning to Cincinnati. But it's a long-winded way of saying, Rich, no, neither of these guys is trying to reset the market. But anytime that you've got players who are as productive as Terry McLaurin and Trey Hendrickson have been, regardless of age, you're going to want to be in that top 5, top 10 type of category. Neither player is. Both players are trying to get there. Structure is an issue in the case of Trey Hendrickson. We'll see how long these go on, but I would say, Rich, sometimes as we get closer to the padded practices, that's when a year ago, a couple of the quarterback contracts got done. Sometimes you get closer to those padded practices that can't begin until this weekend. That's where maybe the sense of urgency starts to set in a little bit more for everybody involved.
Yeah, you're right. Like, we always are trying to glean something from a social media post, and obviously Trey Hendrickson showing off what looked like a Florida sunrise or a sunset is a way to glean that. And maybe, Tom, maybe this is next level chess. Terry McLaurin being spotted coming out of a yoga class might be a way for him to communicate that he's flexible. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, I like it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
I don't know if it's hot yoga.
Go ahead and use that. Use that with your stylist later on. So what happened with Will Levis? Like, he gets hurt in September, and now, and he goes through OTAs, splitting reps, and then all of a sudden on the eve of training camp, he goes and gets shoulder surgery. Like, did he hurt himself in a spot that we didn't know? Like, what's your reporting on what happened with Will Levis in Tennessee? Tom?
We know Will Levis has had that issue with his throwing shoulder since back when he stretched and tried to get the first down, and then he tried to play through it, if you remember, the following week, and he really struggled, and then they finally decided, that they were going to have to give him a break. Think about this from Will Levis's perspective, and I don't know 100% of the ins and outs, but if you're Will Levis, regardless of what the coaching staff or anyone else is saying, Cam Ward is starting week 1. There is virtually no scenario in which the number 1 overall pick is not the starter. So Will Levis, at best, is competing to be the number 2 in Tennessee. You've had, let's call it, bumpy tape through the young course of his career. There have been a lot of decision-making issues and turnovers. Now let's say you feel like you are 90% or 80% of what you can normally be. That's what then you're putting on tape. That's what's being reported on if you're making mistakes. That's what ends up being on tape in the preseason. And teams that are looking at this for potentially trading for Will Levis during this training camp before the regular season, potentially looking at him beyond 2025, that's going to be what sticks in your head. Knowing all that, if Will Levis didn't believe that he could be 100%, it makes sense. Take care of your throwing shoulder above all else. Get 100% healthy, and then give this another go in 2026. It's hard to imagine that would be in Tennessee. I know that the Titans brass has said repeatedly that they were planning to keep Will Levis on the roster and they wanted to have an opportunity to compete. But again, there are certain things that I think have to be said at times. If you're Will Levis and you know that the deck is stacked against you here and you're not yourself, just go ahead. Take care of what you have to take care of here. It'll be interesting to see because Will Levis, he is a talented guy. He did have production in college at Kentucky. He's got a big arm. He's got the physical traits. The decision-making's just been all over the place, and that's been the biggest issue. Maybe a fresh start someplace else, wherever that ends up coming next season with a fully healthy shoulder. He could be that next guy, as we've seen a number of other reclamation projects in recent years, who could revive himself and get back on the field somewhere starting next year.
Lastly, Tom, soundbite that we're going to play later on in hour number 3 after we chat with Joe Banner about a lot of what we've just chopped up, is Kevin Stefanski saying his quarterback plan or his quarterback naming plan or the way to figure out how to map out naming a quarterback is written currently in pencil. What is in pencil, to the best of your knowledge there, Tom?
My understanding going into the summer, right after they had seen through OTAs and minicamp, they had gotten a taste of all 4 quarterbacks. They were divvying up the reps. My understanding was there was truly no decisions made, and they wanted to do their best to make it a fair opportunity for everybody to show what they can do through the course of training camp here. You've got 4 players who could not possibly be at more disparate points in their career. You've got 41-year-old Joe Flacco, who won a Super Bowl like 13 years ago and was on the couch until the Browns brought him back and ended up going to the playoffs with him in 2023. You got Kenny Pickett, who had a lot of injuries. He had concussions, but you can also fairly say that maybe he didn't get, the best opportunity to show what he could do in Pittsburgh. And then you got 2 guys who walked in the door a couple of months ago for the first time in the NFL and have so much to learn. I think that when people think that this is either Joe Flacco or Kenny Pickett, that's a pretty good bet. in large part because the hardest thing that the Browns could do here would be roll one of these guys out, the rookies, as a starting quarterback. Dillon Gabriel, maybe he's, pint-sized Bo Nix from a year ago coming out of the same offense, and you can get him up to speed. He's not going to do as much with his legs as Bo Nix did, but maybe he can show you something, but he's still got a growth process. Shedeur Sanders has a ton to learn, all the things you saw in college in terms of the decision-making and holding on to the football and taking sacks. That takes a while, and he's in an NFL offense for the first time. The logical way to approach this, Rich, I would just think, and I'm not speaking for anybody else here, the logical way to approach this would be you give Joe Flacco a start, you give Kenny Pickett a start, you give the two rookies a lot of playing time through those first two preseason games, and then, as Stefanski said yesterday, you make a decision as soon as possible. Now, having said that, we've all seen it, Rich. We've all seen when you get into the preseason, and it's usually a first-round quarterback, but sometimes a rookie quarterback or a young guy will jump off to such a great degree that the coaches involved just have to go, we've got to at least give this guy a shot. Otherwise, you're the Browns a number of years ago when you had Baker Mayfield pretty plainly being ready to roll, and instead he was informed that, hey, you won the number 2 job and ended up being on the bench at the start of the season behind Tyrod Taylor. You got to play the best guy. The people in the locker room always know you can't fool the other players. And if Dillon Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders is the best option, they'll be out there. But it is the hardest outcome for the Browns to reach for a variety of different reasons here. I do believe we will get through those first, at least one, probably 2 preseason games before we have the season in Cleveland.
Tom Pelissero dispensing information and still some blanks to fill in with the top story that we hit at the very beginning of our conversation, getting set to cut his hair for the first time since the NFL draft. And, look at that. Now he looks like a beetle. That is unbelievable. Look at this.
Emo Tom.
Or for you Get Smart fans, the Groovy Guru. Those who know.
Yeah, you lost
at any rate, I know I did. With this information that you haven't cut your hair since the draft, Mike Hoskins and the rest of the group, look at that right there on the left. That's the draft, Tom Pelissero.
Oh.
Now look at the current Tom Pelissero. Very carrot toppy right there, man. The guy on the left, I know that guy. The guy on the right, I don't know who you are anymore, man.
I'll send you a photo. You're on for a little while longer here. Yeah. I'll try to get you a photo, or at minimum for tomorrow's show.
Do it tomorrow, Tom. I don't want to rush the process, and I don't want your stylist focused on anything but the actual quaffing. Okay. This may be the greatest lump of clay your stylist has ever had. Okay, so I want to see something like out of, what would you say? Out of Ghost. You know what I mean? Like something like that. Okay, Tom? Take care of yourself. We can't wait to see the after picture.
2-week training camp tour coming. I got to get something manageable.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Tommy P, everybody, right here on the Rich Eisen Show. Catch the Rich Eisen Show live weekdays from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern on Roku Sports Channel in the U.S.